Morning members, and welcome to this meeting of the Enabling Customer Services Committee on Tuesday the 18th of November. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded and will be made available for viewing through our Council's website. Remote participants, please follow the good practice guidance, which includes muting microphones, switching off your video when you're not addressing the meeting, writing speak in the Teams chat function when you want to contribute. If you are in the hall, you can do this on your iPhone or iPad. Please don't repeat contributions already made by other members. No material should be posted in the chat function if it is intended as part of the discussion. The usual standing orders apply, including that any votes will be undertaken by roll call. If any member has to leave the meeting, please either leave the Teams meeting for that period of time or write leave in the Teams chat function and then join when you rejoin the meeting. This is so we can keep track on whether the meeting is quorate. All members should speak clearly and directly into the microphone, and when making contributions and when referring to reports, please provide reference to the relevant page and paragraph to allow everyone to follow. Please focus contributions on areas where clarification is required or to propose an alternative to a recommendation. Similar to the process now followed at full council when considering motions amendments which are substantive in nature, I will call a recess where necessary so that I may seek governance advice on competency. This is good practice in governance terms and will also provide for governance to be able to collate and circulate the terms of the said motion or amendment to members in order that they have the opportunity to properly review it. I hope this process makes matters more effective and seek members' support in implementing this. We have several important reports to consider today, and I anticipate that we will deal with the business in the usual efficient manner. Before I proceed with the business, I wanted to say a few words in recognition of the success of the procurement team at the recent National Go Awards, which celebrates excellence in public procurement Scotland. The Council won its first Go Award, the Best Net Zero Procurement Initiative, which recognised the commitments made to net zero within our procurement strategy and the evidence of delivery through the recent upgrades at Dumfries Sizewell. The Council's Sustainable Procurement Officer, Emma Bowden, was also highly commended under the Future Leaders of Procurement category. After joining the team as a trainee in 2022 and gaining her professional qualification, she now specialises in sustainable procurement and has been a driving force on community benefit and social value from procurement since taking on her current role. So can members join me in congratulating Karen, Emma and the whole corporate procurement team on their success. Thank you and well done. So we'll now move on to agenda item 1, which is the sederant and apologies. Nick, can you provide the sederant and any apologies, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we have 6 members present in the hall. We have 10 members present on Microsoft Teams, those being Councillors Dashper, Hagman, Howie, Ingalls, Lowe, McGregor, McCammon, Marsh, Marshall and Wilson. We have 2 apologies from Councillors Malcolm Johnston and Councillor Mayle. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Now move on to declarations of interest. Do any members have a declaration of interest or a statement of connection they wish to make? Councillor Dorward.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. Just a statement of connection of an IGB voting member.
Thank you. Councillor Hagman.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, it's a statement of connection in relation. I think it's just items 11 and 14 insofar that I was the COSLA Resources spokesperson covering workforce and digital. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Don't see anyone else. Move to item 3, minutes of the previous meeting of 17th of June 2025. Can we approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 17th of June either? Councillor Hislop.
Minor inaccuracy. I was missed off the members present on the first page, but I am here. It does say that I was there.
That's been noted. Yeah, thanks very much. With that amendment, can we approve? Yep. Thank you. Now move on to agenda item 4, which is the minute of the previous meeting of the 16th of September 2025. Can we approve the minutes of the meeting? Agreed in the room? Thank you, members. Now move on to agenda item 5, which is the Council Revenue Budget Monitoring Report 2025-26 for the period ending 30th of September 2025, brackets quarter 2. Report by Chief Financial Officer. Members are presented with the quarter 2 Council Revenue Monitoring Report providing the overall financial performance to date this year, as well as identifying the main financial pressures anticipated to impact on the Council's position. The report highlights risks around the delegated social care budget and the delivery of the balanced budget by the Integration Joint Board. So we've got Gillian Ross and Paul Garrett are here to assist members. If they have any questions, do you have anything to add to the report?
Thank you, Chair. Just to note that in relation to paragraph 4.4 in the teachers' pay award negotiations, just to confirm that those have now been concluded in line with the details that are within the report, and it's anticipated that all backdated pay will be paid to teachers in the December pay run.
Thank you for that update. So I'll open it up to members. Councillor Slater and then Councillor Thompson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I must admit the amount of money that is accrued here as such is quite outstanding, I must admit. I just wonder why it's got to that level, and was there not in business you would try and resolve it in some reason or other, try and bring it back. I just find that it's grown to a tremendous amount of money, and has it been any attempt to try and bring that level down? Because in business you would normally do that. The directors report to the CEO, and if there's a budget running out of line, normally that's the one that has to be brought back in if possible. And that's really a good question. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul or Gillian? Paul?
Thanks, Chair. Can I just check, Councillor, what particular part of the report you're referring to? Is it the IGB position in particular? Yes, no, that's fine. I thought that might be the case, no problem. Obviously, this committee received a detailed report at its last meeting on the position in relation to the IGB and the work that's going on in the current year to support the IGB in seeking to address the currently projected overspend. There's very significant senior officer input to support IGB colleagues at the minute, particularly through a grouping that's chaired by the Chief Executive, that a number of senior officers, including myself, are on. The absolute focus is on assisting the IGB in reducing the overspend by the end of the financial year. But we felt as though it was appropriate to reflect in this paper the challenges that are being experienced in that area, and there is a risk that there won't be further progress made against reducing that overspend over the remainder of the year. But the focus is very much on those measures you've talked about in terms of trying to ensure that steps are taken, that the agreed savings are implemented to support the IGB in reducing spending down to the agreed budget level.
Thank you, Paul. Has that been helpful, Councillor Slater?
Just, Paul, it's when it comes to the end of the year and it's still a large amount of money, what happens then? Is it written off? I believe the Health Board can write some of that off, but I believe the Council can't. Do you have to pay that? Thank you.
Paul?
Yes, that's correct. Under the terms of the integration scheme, the extent of IGB overspending that relates to services delegated by the Council, that becomes a responsibility of the Council itself. In previous years where that's been the case, just in the last couple of years, there has been IGB reserves available to support that, but there's no longer any IGB reserves remaining, so the overspend that is there at the end of the year that relates to delegated services from the Council will become an issue for the Council itself. As reflected in the paper, while the focus is very much on seeking to reduce overspend, it is appropriate that we do start planning for how the Council would address any requirement to make an additional payment at the end of the financial year, because, as you say, there tends to be other support, Scottish Government support on the health side in relation to overspending. Local authorities don't get that direct support, so it will be something the Council itself will have to deal with, and we're starting work in relation to potential options in relation to that.
Thanks, Paul. Councillor Thompson.
Thanks, Chair. And it's sort of following on from Councillor Slater's question, but from 417 onwards in the report, it talks about a bit in more detail about the pressures in the IGB budget and the impact it might have on us. As yet, we don't quite know the extent of that, and there's measures being taken, obviously, to try and address or contain some of the pressures in that to try and reach a balanced budget, which doesn't look likely. But it does talk about significant service change in part of that as a way of making that budget more sustainable going forward. There's also, at COSLA, for example, I think there's a widespread recognition that we need that extra support at a national level to recognise the pressures that IGBs are facing across the country. So in terms of us locally, it makes it very difficult for members to know how best to set a budget. And I'm just wondering if there's any further update you can give on the pressures or the changes that are being made and what's effective and what's not, or when we're going to know. Thank you.
Paul?
Yep, so obviously there's a wide range of measures being taken forward by the IGB at the minute to seek to address the extent of pressures currently being faced. I'm very conscious that that is a matter for the IGB itself, directly rather than the Council, but things like a review of complex care, a review of the arrangements for recycling care, prioritisation are part of that, and there's a range of efficiencies in terms of in-house delivered services as well that are being implemented to seek to reduce the overspend. But no, I think it is important to recognise that pressures are being experienced across the system, partly related to that, so there is a challenge in terms of reducing costs further at the minute. In terms of how best to support members' budget setting considerations, obviously as we've done previously, there'll be reports to both committee and to the budget panel as the budget process is taken forward. There is very much a push at a national level, a recognition at a national level of the pressure on IGBs across the country at the minute. Obviously COSLA have given this a significant profile at the minute. The extent to which the Scottish Government will be able to provide additional funding to support pressures is obviously, significant uncertainty at the minute. It will be very challenging to provide the kind of level of additional expenditure that is currently being sought. So I think it is inevitable that whatever support is provided, there will be a need for ongoing further change both at a national and a local level. And obviously what we'll do is provide members with information in relation to that as part of the budget setting considerations. But I think it is important to straighten out this council has met all the requirements in previous years in terms of passing on additional Scottish Government funding to the IGB. But costs have increased very significantly during this period. So I think whatever support is provided at a national level, there will be a need for ongoing change going forward to seek to get back to a sustainable, balanced position for the IGB going forward.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Marshall followed by Councillor Hislop. Councillor Marshall.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I think I raised this at the last meeting of enabling customer services. It's in relation to the delivery of agreed savings, which is Appendix 4.25, which is 4.25 at the bottom of page 37. And I've also raised at E&I again when we got the monitoring reports as well, but nothing much has changed with regards to all other service committees seems to have been able to be on target for the savings that the department are going to make. But when it comes to E&I think nearly every one of the savings is not achieving its forecast. Some of them is not achieving any amount whatsoever, and some are repeat from previous years. So it's really just what more can we do to try and improve that. I don't think it's right that we have to keep on dipping into the change fund to kind of mitigate against, not making the savings. I think councillors have a tough decision when it comes to budget. So we put faith in the templates that are provided by the departments, and the fact that E&I really aren't achieving on their savings is a concern probably for quite a lot of councillors. So I just wondering what else can we do to try and make sure that we can improve on this year's, but also that the templates that come forward are realistic.
Thank you. Gillian?
Thank you. Yes, I think as we highlighted during the last meeting here, we are working in conjunction with colleagues within economy and infrastructure to try and increase the delivery of these savings as much as possible. And where there are timing delays, we're looking at whether there are other mitigations or one-off amounts that we can try and capture to reduce the extent of the shortfall within the year, so that the element of the change fund is minimised as much as possible. So that is something that we are seeking to do. The information within here is informed by the service, but they probably are, at this moment in time, reflecting the worst case scenario, or what they present as the kind of that position at the moment. And obviously we're continuing to work with them to try and minimise that. In terms of the budget process for the current year and the impact there, we are reiterating this point with the services and about the need to ensure that savings are fully deliverable and available for members in that aspect. So we are increasing the level of scrutiny on the savings templates at this point in time to try and minimise that. There might always be an element of timing, and that is the aspect that should be reflected within the change fund, but we're trying our best to minimise that impact as much as possible.
Thank you. Has that been helpful, Councillor Marshall?
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much. So I've got Councillor Hislop, followed by Councillor Dorward.
Thank you, Chair. With regard to the social work, there's a slight overspend of 477, which will be partially offset under 4.8, it says, by the reduction in the additional investment. Now, my understanding, the additional investment was a sort of spend to save measure. Now, if we can't do that, we're going to end up year on year having more and more overspends because we can't implement our spend to save plans. Is there any way that social work can be asked not to sort of dip into that fund? Because that's what we need to be doing now. We need to be moving from, I think, preventative, or moving to preventative rather than reactive sort of situation. And we need to make sure that happens quicker across all services. And I suppose the other question is, what control do we actually have over the IGB if they decide, well, we're not going to implement any financial savings because, well, we have to deliver the services? And when do we actually find out? Is it in year prior to the budget, or is it, I think it was a director called it month 13, which is after the year end when everything's totaled up? That was the second part. Another one is, I noticed in a couple of the savings templates, like increased licensing fees, we're actually not achieving that, but we're finding savings elsewhere. Is that affecting service, or is it things that should have been identified previously that we could have had, so it could have been more savings? You know, what was that one? You know, if they're not being able to deliver what we are, what is it we're actually using to cover that saving?
Thank you. So 3 questions. Who wants to come in first? Gillian?
Thank you, Councillor Hislop. So in relation to the first question on the mitigation funding, that was to cover 3 main elements associated with the 3 kind of key pressures associated with residential placements, the fostering, the intensive kinship care arrangements, and also some upfront, early intervention aspects. The area that we're underspending on at the moment is primarily associated with the kind of fostering side of stuff, where we're really struggling to get increased numbers of intensive fostering, and it had been anticipated that that would then release and be able to bring children back in from the external placements in-house. So the service are actively recruiting to that. It's just that the numbers that they're recruiting to are effectively offsetting the ones that are leaving the system. So it's very much that they're continuously trying to get those mitigation measures in place, but it's just they're sort of really gaining a kind of standstill position at the moment rather than making that inroad and that improvement. So it's not really, the underspending isn't really associated with them not progressing anything. It's just really the challenges that they're experiencing that are out with their control at the moment. So they are looking to continuously address those aspects and try and contain spend within the overall levels. Do you want to come back in, Ivor, on that point before we continue on?
Just on that, is that a recurring fund that's in there, or is it a one-off spend? Because, you know, if it's recurring, then fair enough. I'm happy that the money's still there. I wouldn't like to think it's a one-off to get up to a level, and then if we've spent it, it's not there to do it next year or something, if needed.
Yeah. So as part of the 24-25 budget, we went and put in recurring funding of 1.5 million, 1.49 million to be exact, but 1.5 million pounds, which was then supported by some non-recurring funding. But the significant majority of that money was ongoing money of just about 1.2 for the mitigations and the ongoing investment. So it is recurring funding. Is that okay for that point? I'll just quickly cover the point 3 in terms of the licensing and the shortfalls in the savings there, or the anticipated position there. So as you've indicated in the appendix, they are struggling with the current savings application at the moment, but due to other factors within, they're able to capture some one-off benefits. So they're not recurring things that we could probably look at in terms of savings at this point in time. They're just in-year kind of variances that we're anticipating that will be able to offset that. And that's very similar to the position that we've highlighted in relation to economy and infrastructure, that where services aren't able to achieve savings in year, we are looking for them to identify whether there's any one-off or mitigating measures that they can take to try and make sure that those savings don't have that impact on the change fund. And I'll pass over to Paul in relation to your GIB queries.
Yep, thanks, Gillian. Yes, so I mean, in terms, I think the question, Ivor, was, what is the impact on the council, or what can the council do if the IGB choose to focus on meeting the current demands rather than on reducing the spend back down to the agreed budget level? I think there's probably a couple of sides to this. One is that the governance aspect is a challenge to an extent. That's something that's causing some difficulties across Scotland, whereby councils have got the responsibility for meeting any overspends but are not able to directly influence the measures being taken to address those overspends. However, I hopefully can provide some assurance in terms of, I don't think there's a risk or concern that the IGB are not sufficiently focused on this at the minute. There's a lot of work going on with IGB colleagues. There needs to be a recognition of the pressures and fully understand that. And I think whether these decisions were required by the IGB or the council itself, it would be very challenging, and we'd have to take into consideration some of those wider aspects. But I think there is a real commitment there, and we're working closely with the IGB to seek to provide support to seek to ensure that the measures are implemented and have the impact that's currently being sought. So I think there is a genuine commitment there from the IGB to address this, but there is not that direct control, which is a bit of a concern across Scotland at this stage.
Thank you. Councillor Daubert.
Thanks, Chair. Says IGB reference, I know that it's been, my colleagues have talked quite significantly about it already. Significant financial pressures are highlighted at 2.1, but I think that's a bit of an understatement, and I'll just give colleagues a bit of, I'm sure my financial colleagues know this, but there's a gap of over £500 million estimated across Scotland now for IGB services, and that's from Audit Scotland. And if you look at the financial gap, it's a percentage of budget. Dumfries and Galloway has one of the biggest at 11.39. We're an outlier there in the worst possible way. So I get the discussion, and this is the finance meeting, so it should be focused on finances, and rightly so. But we're spending money on people's welfare and well-being. So it's very easy to make decisions. You're looking at cold, hard numbers. But we have to think about how that affects people. So if we cut services or don't make changes that are enough, there's going to be an even more increasing amount of unmet need in terms of social care across Dumfries and Galloway and across Scotland. But Dumfries and Galloway is what we're interested in because we're Dumfries and Galloway councillors. So I think we should always keep a weather eye on what it means for our most vulnerable citizens when we're talking about this and making these decisions in terms of our budgets. There's a moral aspect to this that goes right across everything that we're doing here. I know there's intensive lobbying by financial officers, by chief officers, by chief executives, by COSLA, by everybody at the Scottish Government, but they've been turning a deaf ear. We've had nothing back in terms of finances. What I do know is they're on their, I think they're on their 4th reform plan in 5 years, and I'm wondering if anything from that reform plan in terms of working with NHS is hitting the IGBs, and if they're giving any assistance to us from that, whilst they're not doing it from a financial perspective, if we're getting anything from a resource perspective in terms of reforming and making changes to the IGB that would actually help with this massive deficit, which is either going to be 12.5 million that we'll have to pay up to stand still effectively. We're not making any specific changes, or you're saying 6.65 million, which could be a reduced amount, but that's still quite a big amount to do that. So my question basically is, we're not getting any money at the moment. I know there's lobbying going on. That question's already been asked. If we get anything back from that. The other one is about the Scottish Government reform plans and the NHS. Is that hitting the IGB? Do we get any information from them in terms of how we can make savings across the IGB? Thanks. Thank you.
Are we getting any information, Paul?
No, I mean, I think the most recent kind of reform announcements is fairly recent, so I think there's still an assessment of what the potential impact of those reforms are, and the Chief Operating Officer of the IGB gave council officers an update on that just yesterday, which was helpful. At the moment, we're not seeing a kind of a direct link between those reforms and direct financial support or direct reform support in terms of addressing the IGB issue at the minute. But obviously that's something we will look to further monitor as those reform plans are taken forward. So it's not something I'm kind of thinking, as a result of those reforms, that's going to change the position either locally or nationally in terms of IGB pressures at the minute, but it might be a wee bit early to come to that assessment. But just in terms of those kind of national lobbying, I mean, COSLA in their recent manifesto have highlighted the need for an additional £750 million across Scotland to address current pressures in relation to social care, specifically as part of the IGB system. So obviously that's something that will be considered as part of the upcoming budget considerations, but I think to be realistic, I don't think that kind of level of funding is likely to be available, so there will be a need for ongoing reform. And as I mentioned in the response to the previous question, the impact on people, the impact on wider considerations does need to be considered alongside the overall financial requirement. But I'm also very conscious that the council has not got the money to meet those kind of overspends, and particularly not meet those kind of overspends on an ongoing basis, so there will be change required as part of this process. But that is something IGB are definitely taking forward at the minute.
Thank you. I don't see anyone else wishing to come in, so we'll just move to recommendations. Are we happy to note 1, 2 and 3? Yep. Okay, members, move to agenda item 6. This is the Enabling Customer Services Revenue Budget Monitoring Report 25-26 for the period ending 30th September, brackets quarter 2. This report provides members with an overview of financial performance against budget for the period ending 30th of September for Enabling Customer Services. We've got Steve White is here to assist members. Have any questions? So, Steve, have you anything to add to the report?
No, nothing to add. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so I'll open it up to members. We've got Councillor Headlock.
It's going back to the question asked earlier. We've got the savings template there. We were advised that it can be done this year because of the fact that there are one-off savings to be found. What happens next year when we've seen licensing applications reduced, I think, and also civic marriage licences, I think they're coming down in numbers. So how is that going to affect budgets going forward? And what, can they actually be sustainable savings because we're not meeting the target of saving the increased income? There's no saying you can invent the reason to spend the money, but you can't invent the money to spend on the reason.
Thank you. Stephen?
Yeah, thank you for your question, Councillor. There is some work going on by the management team to better understand the root causes as to why the income is struggling to be achieved. And once that piece of work's completed, we'll hopefully have more information around the recurring or non-recurring issue that may transpire. As Gillian had referenced in the last agenda item, there's staff turnover and one-off contributions that were allowing us to achieve that saving in this year. But as I say, the management team are looking to better understand what the root causes are, and that's when we'll then better understand if this is going to be an issue going forward. But it's hopeful that we'll be able to bring something back at a later date on that.
Thank you. I don't see anyone else coming in, so just move to the recommendations. Are members happy to note 1 and 2? Yep, nods in there. Thanks, Stephen. Members, we'll now move on to agenda item 7. This is the Capital Investment Strategy Monitoring of 2025-26, Quarter 2, report by Chief Financial Officer. This report updates committee on the agreed 10-year capital investment and provides an overview of the financial progress of the capital programme for the current financial year as at the 30th of September 2025. Got Karen Donaldson and Paul Garrett are here to assist. Have you anything to add to the report?
No, not at this stage. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So I'll open it up to members. I've got Councillor Lowe.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, colleagues. So my question is about page 54, 4.9, and have we ever achieved the £500,000 that is stated there? And I'm just really querying about the whole process about asset transfers. So how do we maximise the receipts? So there are a number of different ways. Sometimes people approach the council because they want a bit of land, but sometimes we would just decide to make it surplus. One case locally is costing probably more legally to dispose of than we may get. So what is that whole process of declaring asset surplus that are actually going to produce an income to make it worth it?
Thank you. Karen.
Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Yeah, in relation to the capital receipts target, although we allow for £500,000 per year, we try and take a longer term view that we can achieve 5 million over a 10-year period. If you track back some of the previous years' capital reports, there have been years when we've over-delivered on that £500,000 target, and what happens in those instances is we put it aside in the capital fund to allow for years where there may be a shortfall in receipts. So although we're now getting to the point where, again, where the sort of surplus receipts in the capital fund are only sitting at 55k, so obviously we need to be kind of careful going forward, but there is still the expectation that there is assets out there that are to be marketed, that over the the 10-year period, we should be able to achieve the £5 million. In relation to the second part of your question, obviously the council has got a sort of disposal and acquisition policy that is adhered to, and there's numerous different streams as to how an asset can be declared surplus. And obviously, like as you mentioned, we've got to take that kind of analysis of what the sort of most economical use or disposal is, like, to ensure it isn't costing us more than the receipts. However, the property team are looking at that and in a lot of detail at the minute to try and identify and make sure that we are marketing everything that we currently know is surplus. So that work is ongoing as part of the review of the deliverability of the £5 million across the 10-year strategy. So I hope that helps answer your question.
Thanks, Karen. Councillor Lowe, has that been helpful?
Yeah, that has been helpful. Thank you. I just wonder when a piece of land or an asset is declared surplus, what background information they have. For example, do they look around the surrounding area and there are 2 or 3 maybe slightly detached bits of land that are all part of, could be a package? Because if that doesn't happen, it's like 3 separate plots. Is that what has to happen?
Karen?
So, apologies, Councillor, I'm not sure if I'm the correct person to answer that, but I could certainly get someone from the estates team to provide more information on that. But I do know that obviously the land value is assessed before it is put in the market, and they do look at the sort of wider land values. But I can certainly get someone in the estates team to clarify that for you. Thanks.
That's been helpful. So more information should be coming, but there's always the EMAS, as I would suggest. So don't see anyone else coming in. Councillor Thompson.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, it's sort of on the back of the same point. So it occurs to me that we'll have quite a lot of unused assets that aren't surplus officially. So I'm just wondering, how proactive are we being at actually getting unused assets to the right committee so that they can be declared surplus? Because I think our process basically says if it's surplus, then you can market it, and obviously that's what we're hearing about here. But I wonder if there's a bit of a gap, or how efficient are we at getting the unused assets assessed, or whatever the process is now, to get to the surplus status, and therefore we can market it. So I do wonder, I mean, it strikes me that across a number of different wards, elected members will know of bits of land that are not surplus but aren't being used. So I'm just sort of wondering, what does that picture look like, and is there any way that members can get a better sight of that to know how efficient we're being at that? Thank you.
Thank you, and apologies to Councillor Dorward, I didn't see you in the speak. So, Paul?
Yes, I understand the question, because obviously those issues do have a direct impact on the level of capital receipts, which is obviously the kind of key focus reflected in this paper. I think in terms of those issues around process, in terms of declaring assets surplus and how we take that forward, is something for the estates team in particular. It's not something that I feel finance and procurement can answer at this stage directly. So I think probably what we'll have to do is liaise with the estates team within E&I in relation to those processes. But it is part of the discussions we're having at the minute in terms of, you know, we're looking for future budget setting purposes at projections going forward of capital receipts available and measures that can be taken to improve. Current levels is very much part of that. So I think it's something that would feed back to this committee leader. But I do think it's something we'd need, for that kind of detail, I think we need to look towards the estates team in the first instance, if that's okay.
Thank you. Sorry, apologies not letting you in there, Councillor Dorward, but you're next, and then followed by Councillor Slater.
Thank you, Chair. It's just as well I'm not paranoid type, isn't it? I'm not. But thank you for the report, and thank you for the opportunity to ask a question. Page 54, 4.6, just noting the overcommitment allowance, I think appears extremely prudent, so thank you for that. The question's on 4.7 to 4.8 on page 54, and it's a slippage fund of 4 million. of which 1.33 million has been spent. Are we content that the remainder of this allowance is enough to address any further slippage? And if it is, if it exceeds the expectations in a good way, can we transfer that somewhere else to fill any budget gaps? Would that be the intention? Thank you.
Karen?
Thank you, Councillor Dorward. So the £4 million at the start of the year is effectively what we can add in as we go through the programme and identify maybe projects that aren't yet tendered, or just to try and get a feel for the level of risk within the programme, and that's how we set the £4 million. And obviously at the minute we've got just over the £1 million of that used, which are only 6 months through the year. So I think our expectations are at the moment that potentially the remaining allowance will be required, because for multiple reasons there's usually like delays to projects. I suppose what happens at the end of the year is we just carry it forward to support the projects, because we recognise that they normally, like the projects are halfway through, so we would need to transfer the funding so that's available next year to complete the required projects.
Thank you, Karen. Councillor Slater.
Yes, thank you, Chair. As regarding selling off assets, if you continue to sell off assets, you're like selling the King's jewels, I suppose. So that has to come to an end at some time. So I wonder that maybe some of these buildings or land could be maybe better used and still kept within the council business as such. I just wonder, see, you can only sell assets, and once they're gone, they're gone. That's what I'm really trying to say. Okay, thank you.
Was that a statement or a question there?
Well, it is a question, really, as to what there is an end thing here. You can't keep on selling your assets off. You end up with no assets, really. So that's the question.
I don't think are you qualified to answer that, Paul?
I suppose the kind of key point is that the council only sells those assets that it doesn't have a requirement for as part of its service delivery. It's specifically surplus assets that are subject to sale. And, you know, obviously there is a recognition that the council has a greater property estate than it needs to meet its needs. At present, one of the savings that's currently out for consultation relates to potential further reductions in the council's estates, which can produce assets that are available for sale. But we do recognise that, that there is an end to this. You tend to see reductions over a longer period. But I think the key thing is we will continue to focus only on those surplus assets that are not required to support council delivery in terms of generating capital receipts.
Thank you.
Just come back, Chair. Yes. So if you sell the assets, they're gone. But sometimes with land is continually increasing in value. So is it sometimes maybe better to hold on to the asset to a later stage where it might be worth more money back to the council? That's really the question.
Paul?
Yeah, again, our colleagues in the estates team do take those issues into account in terms of potential land value appreciation, but generally the approach is, when a property is not available and surplus to the council's requirements, we would look to seek to generate a receipt from that. But obviously the level of receipt and the value of that land would take into account potential future uses and future appreciation in relation to that value. So that is taken into account at the minute.
Thank you, Paul. Sounds like another EMES. Councillor Hislop.
Is it all assets that are actually within this capital receipts? Because if you take art, for example, we have an art collection. Now, folk might say it's not the thing to do, sell your art collection. However, if you are using your art collection to be some way of funding, you could maybe sell some and buy some other ones, because my understanding, a lot of our art doesn't get exhibited because it has to be stored. We don't have anywhere to, exhibit our art of. And is that the best use of our asset to actually have it sitting in a basement somewhere, maybe not being seen? So would it be better to capitalise some of those?
I'm sure that would be a decision for members, but Paul?
To be honest, I'm not aware of any kind of significant value associated with our current art collection. I could certainly ask the question, but when we're looking at receipts, we're generally looking at surplus properties rather than specific assets of that type of nature. I'm not aware that there's a potential significant receipt sitting there unused at the minute, but it's certainly a question that could be asked.
Thank you. I see your hand up, Councillor Slater, your virtual hand. Is that a legacy hand? Yeah, okay. So with that, I don't see anyone else wishing to come in. So we'll go to recommendations, which is to note 1 and 2. Happy to do so? Yep. Thank you very much. So we'll now move on to agenda item 8, which is the Treasury Management Mid-Year Review of 2025-26, report by Chief Financial Officer. This report presents the mid-year report of Treasury Management activities for 25-26 in line with the requirements of the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy Code of Practice, and including prudential and Treasury Management indicators. So Karen Donaldson, Paul Garrett is here to assist. Is there anything to add to the report? Or just go to questions.
No, very happy to go to questions, Chair.
Thank you very much, Karen. So I'll open it up to members. Councillor Hislop.
Chair, some of the reports in here, I think from, now what are they called, MUFG, they're saying that they see wage inflation coming down. Do you think an increase in taxation might put pressure on wages that people will require further uplift? Is that something that was taken into consideration by MUFG?
Thank you. Paul?
I mean, I think that there's generally a recognition that where income tax levels are increased, that can feed through to no wage demands, but I haven't got any specific comments in relation to that particular issue at the minute.
And do you see that as being raising inflation, which might then affect our interest rates in future years?
There would be the potential for that, but obviously decisions in relation to future tax levels at both the UK and the Scottish Government level are still to be taken for the future, so it's not something we're assuming at this stage, but obviously we'll carefully monitor any changes that come over the upcoming period.
Thank you. Councillor Slater. Okay, so another legacy hand. Don't see anyone else coming in on this item. Okay, members, we'll just move to the recommendations. Are we happy to note recommendation is to note the details of the Treasury Management activities for the period of the 1st April 2025 to the 30th September 2025 as detailed in the appendix? Yep. Thank you. Now move on to agenda item 9. This is Procurement and Commissioning Performance Update Financial Year 25-26, Quarter 2 from the 1st of July 2025 to the 30th of September 2025. Members are provided with an overview of procurement activities during the second quarter of this financial year. We've got Karen Scott is here to assist if any members have any questions. So, Karen, have you anything to add to the report? Okay, nothing to add to the report. And Councillor Lowe, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm standing in today for a colleague, and it's a question on page 110 and beyond, is the definition of supplier size. Because you take, for example, about 2/3 of the way down, JB's and WR. They're both 155,000, but one is a small and one is a micro. And then you sort of take further up the page, Stewardship Care is 483,000 as a micro, but then you get items of less money, but they're medium. So could I just have some kind of idea of how this definition works?
Yeah, clarity around the micro, medium, unknown, I suppose.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Councillor Lowe. So the supplier sizes are published classifications and they combine a number of factors, including things like the turnover of the business and the number of employees that each individual business has. So I'm looking at some of the examples cited. There are some notable differences in terms of some of the sizes of those. It may not be relevant to the particular council contract with that business, but it's based on their wider business activity and how they're registered and what they submit in their end of year accounts.
Has that been helpful, Councillor Lowe?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I've got Councillor Dorward followed by Councillor Marshall. Councillor Dorward.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report. 4.14, page 89, first page. And it's about spend on local businesses, which I think, if my arithmetic's right, which it might be totally wrong, is about 24% of spend in Dumfries and Galloway over a reporting period, and that's consistent with levels, previous levels, which is great. But I know that there are, from feedback from constituents and small businesses, there are still, they perceive barriers still exist to getting onto the procurement ladder, so to speak. Is there anything we can do? Quite a lot of third sector organisations are saying they find it quite onerous to go through the process. Now, I know we have to protect the taxpayers' pound, I understand that, and we're a public sector organisation, and we have to make it as transparent and objective as possible, so I understand that. But is there a balance between prudent accounting for the taxpayers' pound and also helping other businesses, as well as the 24% we've got just now, to thrive? Is there something we can do? I know we do open days and we do, is there anything else we can do? What I'm getting back, and it's not a criticism of you, it's a process, is that people find it quite challenging. If they're a small organisation, small business, they don't have the resourcing to go into the process in the depth that perhaps a larger organisation would. Is there anything we can be doing there to assist? Anything more we can be doing? I know we're doing quite a lot anyway, but is there anything more we might be thinking of doing? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Karen?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Councillor Dorwood. Absolutely, and happy to take any of the direct feedback and particular examples on board. It's the only way we can better understand where some of those challenges and frustrations do come in. There's always that proportionality balance that we need to make in terms of ensuring that the council and those accessing council services are appropriately protected within the contracts themselves. So it is always a bit of a tension and a balancing act that we try and achieve. You mentioned specifically third sector, and we have been doing some specific sessions with third sector organisations to try and better support them ahead of documentation coming out. So we almost do a kind of show and tell, and we'll show them the documentation, because sometimes if someone's sitting there and can explain it, when we've not got a live process in play, it can try and demystify some of the questions instead of someone getting them cold and they're not used to that type of documentation. And we're also working quite closely with the third sector interface as well, so that they can provide some of that support, recognising that obviously some of the smaller, particularly third sector organisations, don't have those bid teams that some of the larger organisations do have. But happy to take any specific feedback on board to try and make sure we always get that balance right.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Marshall followed by Councillor Stitt, followed by Councillor Slater. So Councillor Marshall.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, my question is on Annex B on pages 110 and 111. It's really just, first of all, thanks, because I remember raising the issue a while back about trying to identify some of the supplier sizes. So it looks by that list there's been quite a bit of work done on identifying, whether they're small, medium and large. And then a specific question, just noticed one of them on near the bottom of page 111. it's Cargan Tower Limited. I'm just wondering a little bit more information on that one and what's the service, etc., that is provided from Cargan Tower Limited.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have the detail to hand, but can certainly go and look into exactly what the transactions are behind that particular spend and share that back with all members in the committee afterwards.
Okay.
Thank you, that'll do.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Councillor Marshall. Councillor Stitt.
Thanks, Chair. Page 108, Karen, Forth and June Collison Pond upgrades. Can I get a bit of clarification on that? Because I see there's 36,277 part of construction. But I know that there has been ring fence money that be done years ago when we sold pieces of land. And that's ring fence that the Community Council holds. Is this an additional 36,000 on top of what they've got ring fence? Because I was at their last Community Council meeting and I think they're still going through negotiations with some of the contractors about what works to get done. It's just when I see the 36,277 there.
Karen.
Yeah, and thanks for the question, Councillor Stitt. Happy to come back and confirm the exact detail, but my understanding is this will be the same money that the Community Council hold and we procure on behalf of the Community Council. So I wouldn't expect this to be additional money. I can't comment on if there's ongoing negotiations around the final detail and the design, but the likelihood is we've awarded a contract on behalf of the Community Council at that 36k value.
That's fine, Karen, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Slater.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's regarding obviously small businesses and the fact that getting them to apply and things like that. Sometimes these companies are quite small and they're concerned about maybe taking on a larger contract that they cannot achieve. So this probably is a restriction for some of them to apply sometimes. But they don't want to take a contract on and find they miss the deadlines. So it just, you know, I don't know the way around that, I must admit, but I think basically just because companies are sometimes, they won't take on a large contract because they've got work, but they don't want to take any more because they maybe can't finalise it. Thank you.
Karen.
Okay, thanks, and thanks for the question, Councillor Slater. Probably in a similar vein to some of the points raised, I think, through Councillor Dorwood as well. So, again, happy to take any particular examples if there are any, but I suppose the point raised there is around some of the sizes of contracts as well, and that's a further balancing act that we try and play out in terms of ensuring that we've got sufficient resource to appropriately manage these contracts as well, so we obviously can't take them to some of the smaller sizes that may create further opportunities. However, we do work to try and promote some of the subcontracting opportunities, particularly around some of the larger contracts, and we have been looking to try and support and facilitate some consortium bidding that might allow a number of smaller companies to bid together. So that will be a bit of a theme at the Meet the Buyer events that will take place early next year, and we'll look to do some direct contact as well with local companies in particular sectors, which will focus around social care, third sector, and also the construction side, where we feel there could be some opportunity around consortium bidding for some of those companies as well.
Just come back in. Sometimes you give a contract to a company, but they sometimes subcontract work. So these smaller companies are maybe never actually mentioned as such in the work, as you pay the main contractor who has subcontracts some work to be done, and he pays the small company. And I just wondered maybe that there is small companies getting work, but through the large companies. Thank you.
So I take it, is the subcontractor noticed in the process? I'm not sure.
So, not on a kind of data-driven basis that you would see factor into these reports. So there is that ongoing spend through the supply chain that we can't necessarily capture. However, we are trying to kind of monitor some of that, and we hear some really positive stories through some of the social value community benefit monitoring, where we're encouraging businesses to work with local suppliers to support them and include them in their supply chains. So we monitor it in that way, but not to a quantifiable amount that would say we spend X amount with subcontractors in the region.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, it's sort of on the back of Councillor Dorward's, I suppose, concern just about the benefits to local businesses. And I was encouraged when you were talking there about consortium approach as well as the sectoral interest, because obviously we'll get a sense or intelligence over the years of where the big spends are and what sectors we know will be repeat business every year. So there's probably a space to encourage local businesses to get involved in that. I just wondered if there's, well, firstly, do we have any sort of clearer data on micro businesses? Because I know we always talk about SMEs, and I think I've probably raised this point before, but our businesses in the south of Scotland tend to be characterised more towards the micro and small rather than medium. So, and that does tend to tilt towards larger companies who have that capacity, as I think we've been hearing today, to maybe go through the application or the bidding process or whatever. And that's maybe something we could work on. But is that part of the PCS, Public Contract Scotland system, that makes that more awkward for smaller companies? Or is that a national thing? Or is it something locally that we can tweak and change? Because I know we can encourage folk, but at the end of the day, it's going to come down to admin and time and resource often. So encouraged by what you've said, but is there anything else we can do in terms of the bureaucracy around it? Thank you.
Karen.
Thanks, and thanks for the question, Councillor Thompson. I think in terms of the data around micro, this is something that we've been doing some work recently on under the Community Wealth Building Procurement pillar and utilising some of the analysts in SOCI. So they have a really good data set and some data pools. So they're looking at bringing that information together, and we'll have the contract work plans. So the ambition through that group was to look at the contract work plans for next financial year against the business base that's currently within the area, and that would inform some of the targeted approaches as well around, let's look at consortium and construction, for example, and we've got the carrot there of here's the work that's coming up, and we can leverage in some support to try and facilitate that consortium bidding. It's just trying to, one of the challenges is always we don't know who we're not engaged with because we're not engaged with them, so we're trying to use the SOCI data sets to try and pull some of that information.
Okay, Councillor Hislop. I'll bring Councillor Thompson back in. He wants to respond.
Yeah, so it's just, no, that's and I appreciate there's work going on, Karen, but I was just wondering about the sort of bureaucracy side. I mean, is there certain things that we're bound to adopt because it's sort of part of national procurement framework systems, or are there things that we can vary locally that might assist our particular need in our region? Thank you.
Karen.
Thanks, and apologies I missed that question. So there's two parts to that. The regulated activity, things like the single procurement document is mandated at a national level. However, the lower value quick quote documentation, we've created a template to provide consistency across the organisation, but that's something we've got our own control over. So if there's opportunities to review and improve on that document and try and simplify that, then happy to take that feedback on board and work on that document.
Thank you. Councillor Hislop.
Thank you. It was based on the sort of local spend is 24% of the contracts awarded. Is that based on all of the contracts? If you take the big one at DGCP 0313, is that just the stage one part of the contract, or is it the total contract, the stage two? Because it's in there that different figures on page 105. Is it the 294,500 it's based on, or does the total actually mean if you took it out in just the stage one, we're actually sitting about 50%?
Karen.
Thanks. And so just to clarify, the 24% is actually based on our spend during the period, and the appendix, Annex A, is actually the contracts that have been awarded. So typically that wouldn't reflect any of the spend at this time because it wouldn't have been incurred as we've just awarded the contract.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Dorward.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the report. I just lost my place in it, which doesn't do it. Oh, here we go. Page 97 is the Dumfries High School social value KPI summary. I'll let you find that first. Great. I think this is a great thing to do in terms of it's something like a £56 million contract or thereabouts. So I think getting a spin-off from that from the contractors is really, really useful, because we can't provide we don't have the local ability to do all the contracting work here because we're a smaller region. Don't have the economies of scale, so it's great to get something back. But a wee bit concerned, if that's the right word, about, I mean, some of them have consistently exceeded expectations, but the number of jobs created for people with disabilities, and I know the target was quite small, it was like 0.5, and we've exceeded that by 200%, but that's not a really big target, I would suggest. Maybe it's just with hindsight and looking at things, and maybe looking at if we have a similar, hopefully we will have many similar builds coming up in the future, to look at that from a different perspective. And also I think that the maybe more concerning is the hours dedicated to supporting unemployed people, 20 not been achieved yet. I know there's still some time to go. And the hours dedicated to support young people into work, not been achieved yet. And I think it's very important in a region like Dumfries and Galloway, where we want to retain our young people as much as possible, that we put every effort into making sure that happens by encouraging them in terms of employment, in terms of the confidence, CV building, etc., etc. And also folk that are perhaps not in active employment at the moment, which we have quite a lot of as well in the region, to do that. So I'm wondering if there's anything we can do to increase that via the procurement process. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen?
Thanks, and thanks for the questions, Councillor Dorwood. In terms of the targets set as well, absolutely there's lessons to be learned around that, and we've continually had discussions with the contractor around how challenging or not some of those may be on reflection. So whilst these have been what were agreed at the outset, we are talking and working on an ongoing basis. We meet monthly to review this, and it's with the ambition being that these are not we reach them and we stop, and that's why you see quite a bit of the overperformance starting to take place as well. And that's been a reflection and recognition that actually we would aspire for much more than the core base targets that were set at the outset of the contract, and would learn from that for future contracts. In terms of the particular examples around the employability related targets as well, we have now brought in colleagues from our employability team who are working and joining with the contractors on site to make sure that we actually get something meaningful that's aligned to some of the wider work programmes and working schools as well for the young people, so that it creates that kind of pathway in where it's relevant and helpful to individuals as well. So that's work in play. It's just not quite at the point it's reported as of yet, but no concerns around the likelihood of it being delivered.
Do you want to come back in, Councillor Dorwood?
That's okay, Chair. No, thanks for that. I think it's really important, as you say, you've mentioned it, to learn lessons from that, because it's something that from our perspective as a group, it's really important to engage with young people in terms of their employment, and also those who are not in active employment at the moment. And it's perhaps something. It's interesting that we're putting our own resourcing to do that along with the contractors, which might take away from the cost benefits of you putting in. But however, it's a good way to do it. You have to look at every angle and look at how you can do these things. But I suppose with hindsight, you can reevaluate that, and when you're doing another bigger contract, which will come up at some point in time, make sure that we've got the ducks in a row. It's not a criticism, by the way. It's just an observation. And it's every day's a learning day, isn't it? So thank you for that. Cheers.
Thank you very much. Don't see anyone else coming in. Okay, we move to recommendations. Members happy to note the content of procurement and commissioning performance update. Happy to do so. Yeah, nods in the room. Okay, thanks very much. Move to agenda item 10, which is the Financial Code 4 income collection debt write-offs. Members are being asked to scrutinise details of the debt written off under delegated procedures over the 6-month period of the 1st of April 2025 to the 30th of September 2025. The Council's financial regulations require that details of write-offs are presented to this committee twice yearly. So we've got Lorna Campbell is here to assist if members have any questions. Lorna, have you anything to add to the report?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. No, nothing further to add.
Thank you, Lorna. So I'll open it up to everyone. So I've got Ivor in the room and then Councillor Lowe. So Councillor Hislop first.
Could Lorna give us a reassurance that everything is done to chase these debts? Because I think a recent article in the press has highlighted that this council's soft giving away £300,000 in council tax, and the sort of feedback we get in my shop is, oh, if that's the case, why do we bother paying council tax? But can you reassure the public out there that we do chase everything we can, and it's only a case of last resort that we write them off, but they're not written off as in if the person is able to pay it, we'll chase them again.
Thank you. So is everything being done that possibly can be done?
Thanks, Councillor Hislop. Thanks, Chair. Yes, I can provide assurance that we do everything possible. I mean, these debts, they go through a whole recovery cycle of our reminders, our final reminders, and then are passed to our Sheriff Officer for collection, who will then pursue every diligence possible. And I think these are high figures when they're printed like this, but bear in mind this spans a period of 15, 20 years of council tax, so that we don't write them off instantly. The majority of these are significantly older, and we only write them off once we've exhausted all possible efforts in recovery.
Thank you. So, Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Chair. Page 115, and it's a question about historic housing benefit. Housing is now part of the calculation for universal credit, but it always used to be separate. So I'm just wondering, is this sort of quite old payments going back? Given that we don't have our own housing, so it will be actually the housing associations that would need to, would have received the back payments. So how does this work? Is this very old debt to the council that we're writing off?
Yeah, I think Lorna mentioned it was going back 15 years, but can you assist Councillor Lowe?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Lowe. Yes, housing benefit still administered, there's a proportion of it still administered by the council. So you're right, and if a claimant is on universal credit, then their housing costs are paid through universal credit. However, pensioners still receive housing benefit calculated by the council, as do particular housing types like specified accommodation and temporary accommodation related to homelessness are still paid housing benefit. But with regards to the housing benefit overpayments that we write off, yes, these tend to be old housing benefit debts, but some of them may be ones that we currently administer housing benefit for. But similar to the previous answer, we will only write off housing benefit debt where we've exhausted all possible forms of recovery. So if someone is still on benefits, regardless of whether it's universal credit or of another DWP benefit, we would still make application for direct deductions if we know who the person is and we still have those details. So it is one we still recover, and we still do have housing benefit administration, albeit significantly less than what it used to be.
Has that been helpful, Councillor Lowe?
Yeah, thank you for that assurance.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just wondered, in terms of the council tax part of it, so on page 115, it's got number 803 and then a value 289. I think it works out about £360 on average, or something like that. But is that, in terms of like trends, what does that look like over the last few years in terms of that number, 803? Have we got information on that, and does it tell us anything that we need to know about? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Thompson. Yes, I think it probably reflects that our collection levels when it comes to council tax have remained steady and remained high despite challenging economic times. We're still collecting an in-year collection rate at similar at 97%, and even our collection rates for previous years were still averaging about 98% collection even after the year ends. So regarding trends, there's not a huge amount of difference, but what we do look is the types of write-off, and we do a bit of in-depth analysis about write-offs, whether they're people who are on benefits, not on benefits, what you would class as can pays or can't pays. We do that level of work. There is a slight increase in the number of sequestrations. We have seen that over the years, but it's not significantly impacting on our collection levels overall, as they have remained steady for the last number of years.
Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, so just on that then, so is the number of people pretty much the same, and or is the amount of uncollected pretty much the same? Are you basically saying it's kind of roughly the same, sort of consistent with the last few years?
Yeah, we are, but we're not seeing a dip in our collection levels. We are managing to maintain the levels of collection. As I said, and the numbers that are similar. What we have done over the last couple of years is quite a proactive piece of work at looking at debt that's unrecoverable to write it off. I think because what we don't want to do is spend our resources constantly looking at debt that we just know we can't recover. So we have, as a local authority, been quite proactive in that area and identifying debt where we can see either there's no prospect of recovery or it's just uneconomic to pursue. So we have done quite considerable work around that. So it means that we can concentrate our resources on pursuing those debt where we think we can got a chance of recovery.
Last time.
Yeah, no, thank you. So I think there was a kind of not necessarily helpful headline recently just about in relation to the number of people who hadn't paid council tax, but from what you're saying, it sounds like there'll be a breakdown, which is like it could actually be people who are on the threshold of being able to afford to pay that for very, you know, quite understandable reasons, just sort of given sort of pressures. But I take it that breakdown, which you're saying you'd kind of done, will give us a sense of the can't pays versus the won't pays, etc. And I suppose that could be available to members in some aggregated form if that was information we were interested in. I'm not sure if that's appropriate or not, but just to check with you.
Lorna.
Yes, if members are looking for more detail on the type of debt that's out there in relation to cases that are on a benefit or on some sort of reduction, and even how much debt related to each year, we can provide that if members choose.
Thank you. Councillor Slater.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's actually the cost of trying to get that money in. There must be a cost to that. So when is it you decide that you've tried, and obviously that cost, and how much roughly is that cost to be, you know, out of what the debt is actually owed, and you probably don't get it, and the money you've spent to try and get it? No? Yes? Okay.
I'm sure Lorna's already responded, but anyway, Lorna.
Thanks, Councillor Slater. I think we'll have a recovery routine which will follow, so everyone will get a reminder, a final notice, and obviously we have a contract with a sheriff officer, and the costs of that collection is contained within that contract. If we get to a point with a debt, a high value debt, and we know we need to do extra work, whether it's a sequestration or pursuing it through a different legal route, we will assess that against the level of debt and our chances of recovery. So some of that is, if someone's got a level of debt and we know from the information sheriff officers already provided that they don't have any assets, then we wouldn't put extra resource into trying to recover it. So there's always an assessment of whether it is financially worth our while pursuing a debt based on someone's assets. So we look at someone owns their home, owns an asset, if we look at sequestration or other recoveries. So each case is balanced on whether it's economically viable to pursue.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see anyone else wishing to come in, so we'll go to recommendations. Members are asked to note 1 and scrutinise 1 and 2. Sorry, note and scrutinise 1 and 2. Certainly scrutinise, so happy to note. Yep. Thank you, members. Thank you, Lorna. Now move on to agenda item 11. The Annual Workforce Report 2025 report by Assistant Director of Governance and Human Resources. This report provides an annual update on the workforce information and human resource metrics as at the 31st of March 2025. The Council is committed to review and report on a wide range of high-level HR metrics on an annual basis to provide insight and information on relevant workforce trends, and which inform the delivery of the Council's people strategy and workforce priorities. I've got Stuart Clanahan is here to assist. See you online, Stuart. Morning.
Morning, Chair. Thank you.
Have you anything to add to your report?
Nothing further to add, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'll open it up to members. I've got Councillor Stitt.
Thanks, Chair. Just like to say it's a good report listing the workforce, but I find it quite alarming when you go from pages 153 through to 156, the amount of vacancies were in the Council. Special education skills 177 and social work 74. We seem to be finding it hard to recruit, and I think maybe if we got more positions filled, it might be help with our kind of sick record.
Yeah, thanks. Stuart?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, vacancy management is something that we're actively, constantly looking at, supporting services, not only with their recruitment issues and their challenges, but also how we can minimise the time that these vacancies are there. We've actually scheduled in some additional priority to look at vacancies going forward, particularly in 2026. So, you know, I look forward to providing an update after some of this work is completed, because obviously, you know, an organisation will always have vacancies, but it's important to minimise the number of vacancies that we have so that posts are filled. Posts that are filled, that creates productivity and usually increases quality and output as well. So it's benefits all around. So it is something we're aware of and something we're actively working on continuously, but we're looking to put a bit more focus in it for next year. Thank you.
Thank you. You want to come back in?
Thanks, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. So I've got Councillor Marshall followed by Councillor Dorwood.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, my question is in relation to 4.5, sickness absence, and that's on page 128. And I think in 4.51, the description of maximising attendance policy, it's quite detailed in there. I would suggest it kind of concentrates on the fluffier side of it. From personal experience in the private sector, maximising attendance can also involve a kind of more aggressive and robust approach adopted to absent management. So I'm just wondering, does the review that's ongoing at the moment with the unions, does it include the potential for more interaction and therefore potentially more unintentional pressure on absent employees? And the reason I'm raising that is when you look at the further on in the report, in the detail of the workforce report, nearly one in three of our education staff, the absences are due to mental health and stress. And overall within the council, it equates to 1 in 4. So just a little bit concerned about the detail of the review and the new approach to maximising attendance. And also, will the agreed revised policy, once agreed, will that come back to committee for approval?
Thank you. Stuart?
Thank you, Chair. Yep. Thanks for that. So there's currently a very comprehensive policy review process that's underway. We have brought together a number of key stakeholders, managers, staff, groups, focus groups, trade unions, and we're kind of working through the detail on what the new maximising attendance policy will look like. I think it's important to emphasise that the wellbeing approach is really important to us, not only as a service and as a policy developer, but as an organisation. We support the wellbeing of our staff first and foremost, recognising, of course, that we really need to deliver services. We need to have people on the front line delivering those services for our community, so it's finding a balance. And what we can see through our engagement process with all of our stakeholders is that we are doing our absolute best to balance what we need to do and run as an organisation whilst at the same time supporting our staff, expanding our ability to apply reasonable adjustments, looking at lighter duties, the prevention agenda rather than the reactive agenda when people are off. You mentioned work-related stress or stress in general, and we can see that sits prominently within our figures, which will be no different to anywhere else, but it's certainly something that we're really aware of. So we need to balance all of those things together. So the work is progressing really well. It's a massive policy for us, and our current policy has served us well, but it is time for that refresh. I think the forward plan is looking to bring that policy back to this committee in February or March next year, when we should have concluded the comprehensive engagement process. So nothing will be agreed until we bring it back here. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Has that been helpful, Councillor Marshall? take that as a yes.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, yes, it is. But what I am kind of just saying is, you know, unintentional consequences if you were to have a more aggressive policy is just that concern.
Thank you. So I've got Councillor Dorward.
Thanks, Chair. Just 2 seconds. Just a couple of questions, if you don't mind me asking. One is fairly straightforward, and it's just I don't know what I don't know. 137 in the report itself, and thank you, the report is excellent actually, it's really good and a really easy read, which is appreciated sometimes when you're trawling through papers. So 137, workforce demographics, it's got occupied positions by salary range, which is the excuse me, second bar chart down. And just, I don't know what I know what DGC is, council other. What's other for the council and others education? What does that mean, and what salary bands are they in? I don't understand the description. That's a fairly straightforward one, if that's okay. And the other question is on registered carers, if that's all right. That's on page 139. And there's another bar chart to evidence the amount of registered carers in the council, which has gone up considerably since 2015. And I didn't work out the percentage increase, but it's gone up quite a lot, from 9 to, I can't really read this even with glasses on, 555 people 10 years later, which is, I suppose in some way that's good. It's encouraging folk to register as carers. But it's good to see paid carers leave is included here as well. You get a week, whatever that means, pro rata. You can get a week off paid to look at care. But there is an increasing dependence, reliance across the region on unpaid carers, majority of whom are women. I don't know the percentage differences there, but I think the majority are women. So it would be useful to know, whilst that report is good, it would be useful to know going forward, if possible, what's the uptake on pro rata paid leave? Not now, maybe next year or something, or whenever. I don't expect that to be coming back that quickly. And can this be included in the data along with a male-female split in terms of unpaid or registered carers? I think there'll be a heavy weighting on the female side there. And also, have been given any extra funding from Scottish Government to cover this on the paid leave process for registered carers? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dorward. Stuart?
Yeah, thank you. So in terms of the other category, there's a number of professions within that other category. So to give you those examples, those would be our education support officers, educational psychologists, and psychologist management, as well as music instructors, and also quality improvement managers. I don't have the salaries of those with me, but just from memory, that's the group of others that kind of come in there. So it's very much a kind of education focused band that has those professionalisms in there. In terms of the carers side, yeah, absolutely, really good points in terms of, you know, where we want to go in terms of reporting that information. So I can say now that there is a gender bias. It is predominantly female that are on the register. However, it would be no problem to add that gender information for next year's report. So absolutely able to do that. And I think as well, because our systems report the number of requests for paid leave and paid and unpaid leave, then we can also report that as well. So again, 2 yeses to that for next year. So we'll build that into the programme. In terms of the funding for it, I think from 2015, you mentioned 2015, we were one of the first in Scotland to register for the Carer Scotland framework for employers. It's been something that I think is very close to many of our hearts, and we've really championed it well over the kind of 10 years. We are seeing a continual increase, and that's because we're continuing to promote it. We're continuing to show people this is a valuable additional benefit for you. Do you know it exists? And that includes hard to reach groups as well. So it's not just people who can, you know, reach the technology. So we're doing our best to get the messages out there. There's no additional funding for it, so services are absorbing the paid leave. However, the commitment and the sentiment and the principle behind it is much greater than that. So, everybody buys into that in all services. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. That's been helpful, Councillor Dorwood. Councillor Hislop.
Chair, I can't remember when it was, but we recently introduced sort of HR policies on, I think it was menopause. Just wondering how that's embedding in. Is there any issues, and are we enabling our staff to either attend work, or if they can't, to actually find a process through it so that things are helping them stay in their post if possible?
Stuart.
No issues to report, Councillor. All I can say is it's going very well. The feedback has been excellent in all corners of the council. And as members will have seen when it was presented in the last year, that there was a huge amount of development work done by a number of people, not just the HR team, but a wider stakeholder team. It's been a fantastic piece of work. It's went far and wide, including our schools, including our teacher colleagues. So no issues other than positive feedback, and that it is being utilised and used. Don't have any kind of metrics to give you behind that, but I certainly don't have any issue with either providing some further detail if you would like to understand its usage and how it's working in practice. Alternatively, it might be something that you want to see in a bit more detail next year. I'm happy to look into that as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Stuart. I'm sure that's helpful. Don't see anyone else wishing to come in, so move to the recommendations, which members are asked to consider the workforce report, which is detailed in the appendix. Yep. Okay, thanks, Stuart. Move to agenda item 12, which is the People Strategy Update 2025 report by Head of Customer and Digital. This is the 4th annual update on progress with the Council's People Strategy. This report highlights the progress to date and progress on actions since the last update on each of the 6 outcomes. The report also provides an update on progress of impact on the agreed people experience framework this committee approved earlier this year. So we've got James McDowell is here to assist any members have any questions. Have you anything to add to the report, James?
Nope, nothing, Chair, nothing else to add. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'll open it up to members. Councillor Hislop.
Chair, it's the engaging our people. Now, I was lucky enough, I think, there was 2 rounds of the engaging conversations. I think I went to the earlier one. How did the second one go? Because I think it is a good programme. I took part in that survey last week, and it was about how we tell people on one side of the council how the other side of the council's doing, and that was one of the things I brought up. I thought that was really good, that it was noticeable when I was there. People, oh, I didn't realise that was happening, I didn't realise this, and it was, I think, good leadership that they were saying. So how did it go this time? Did we have an increased number? I actually think the face-to-face ones would be a better experience rather than the online, because I'm not a great believer in online. I think it keeps people separate rather than bringing them together. So just, is there any feedback? I think it was September, was it? The last one was?
James?
Absolutely, through yourself, Chair. So yeah, May was the first one yourself, Councillor, attended. So the September ones, again, very successful with regards to what happens within them, within the supportive workforce conversations themselves. Not big numbers. I think we've realised that over the last 3 or 4 years that the numbers are not massive, but it's about the quality of the conversation that happens within it. It's about the sharing that happens. Even down to the one that I was at, where people had been in touch with each other via email, but it was the first time they'd actually sat next to each other and had a face-to-face conversation. So they're very powerful. They also allow us to factor that lived and living experience back into our documents as well, which is very powerful. I think it's great having data. You know, Stuart and HR were on earlier there, so the data is great and looking at trends, but actually getting that lived and living experience as well is very powerful. And I think what we've created is a safe, psychologically safe space to allow colleagues to have a voice, to open up and share experiences within the organisation. And I think, hopefully you can start to see some traction in that. We're very keen in the You Said We Did, and we continue to use that. And that's where we'll say we are making a difference. The change is happening because, you've said and we're doing something about it. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dorward.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for the report. Really interesting. My question's on page 179. Employee experience, and it's about staff networks. And again, my arithmetic may be wrong, but I was doing some arithmetic. So, 243 members of staff networks, and there are 6 staff networks, which doesn't look like a lot in each network. It's quite a low amount. So, for me, it's about 3.6% of the staff group, if my arithmetic's right. I know it's a challenge to monitor equality information, and it was the same in the previous report in terms of the workforce report. It's a challenge to monitor that. But it's interesting this is the case in 2025. We've moved on a lot from the 80s, 90s, whatever, when folk didn't feel they could be, whatever protected characteristic they have, whatever minority group they're in, could be open about that. Why do you think there are people not coming forward, and where do we sit with our similar type our family councils in terms of that rate? Thank you.
James.
That's great. Through yourself, Chair. I think again it's about quality rather than quantity. I think for me, with regards to the numbers, if I'm being honest, I think there's an element of trust that has to be built within the organisation. And I think by having the 6 groups that we currently have, the 6 networks, we're starting to build that trust. And I think when you look at the numbers from last year to this year, again, it's increasing. I think it was about 70 last year, whereas we've, so the trend is on the up, and we hope to continue that. But I think it's back to that trust element within the organisation and allowing people to come together and talk freely amongst themselves. I think the added benefit that we have is the networks can shape policy, can shape strategy, can shape so much more within the organisation, and I think it's a valuable asset that we have there. As I say, even though it's low numbers, but again, it's a valuable asset that we can use shaping the direction of this organisation as we go forward.
Thank you very much. I've got Councillor Thompson, followed by Councillor Marshall. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So I'm just trying to look at this report in relation to the last report, because obviously if we get our people's strategy right, I suppose it would naturally have a positive impact on some of the statistics we've just been looking at. So if we get the right sort of support for our staff, the right opportunities, the right positive culture, that would, I know it's you're sort of saying it's more about quality than quantity, but ultimately there's a quantity of, like, say, work-life balance that would increase productivity, attendance, well-being, all of which might add 3 to 5% in terms of the value of that productivity to the council, which in terms of budget is about £7–8 million. So all of these things can be quantified ultimately if they're effective. So I'm just wondering, what is the outcome of this in terms of what impact will that have on the figures that we'll see in the last report next year? And would that be a sort of reasonable quantitative way to measure how effective our people's strategy is as we develop and improve it? Thank you. James?
Yep, through yourself, Chair. So absolutely. I think I always like to see it as scales. If you're keeping well-being, motivated, engaged staff, then you're hoping the absence decreases, disciplinaries, grievances, all those other things start to drop. So it is that tipping that scale the right way. we produced the People Experience Framework that came to the committee in March this year. And I think that's something we'll continue to bring. And I think that's something that will continue to show the trends of are things improving, you know, particularly against the 5 themes that we have there. You know, they were the 5 themes that came out of our people survey, sorry. So that's what mattered most to colleagues within the organisation that responded. 28% of the workforce responded to that survey. So that's what was valuable to them, that's what was important to them. So those 5 themes, if we continue to monitor that, both quantitative and qualitative information as we move forward, we should start to see improvement is what we're looking for, obviously, but we can start to then physically see that in that document as we move forward. It will be a visual aid to measure that success.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
No, thanks for that. And it's just really so are you confident that next year when we're looking at the, effectively the previous report, that we'll start to see an impact? And will we be able to see, you know, sort of, last year it was this year it was this, and we can attribute some of that because of an effective people strategy?
James?
So we can put the trends down. We can put last year versus this year. It'll be what it'll be with regards to how that looks. But obviously, the interventions that we put in through the people strategy is something that we're looking to improve the organisation. That's why we're doing it. So, you know, those 6 outcomes that we have within there are all about supporting colleagues within the organisation and making it better, making them flourish and thrive within the organisation. So that's the aim, that's the vision of the strategy, and that's ultimately what we're about to do. The good thing is, by monitoring through that framework, it gives us an opportunity to target if need be, you know, so we can target areas where interventions needed, whether that's leadership, whether it's further engagement, whether it's development sessions. You know, we can start to target services and come in there with some organisational development interventions that will hopefully start to improve that as well. So.
And is the Inspire part of this tied into, I think various groups have been invited to send representatives along to an Inspire leadership event, and is that tied into part of this wider process? Thanks.
James?
Absolutely. So under our Developing Our People, we have the brand, which is Inspire. So Inspire Leadership is one of those. Inspire Grow Your Own is another one. So graduate apprenticeships, you know, looking to develop people through the apprenticeship levy or other qualifications is another. So it's something we're using as a brand to try and, you know, just engage with people and get as many people as we can. So the Inspire Leadership event happens twice a year, May and November. It's run into December this year, just with various other activities. But that looks at bringing leaders, managers from across the organisation, roughly about 80 to 100, to the bridge. And again, it's invaluable topics that we discuss there. We've had digital there, we've had well-being, we've had the political environment there as well, and it's coming back to this one in December. So it's good to have a group of individuals in a room, all sharing experiences, all on one topic. So again, it's back to that one council agenda that we're trying to promote.
Thank you, James. Councillor Marshall.
Yeah, thanks. My question is on page 174, 5.3, and it mentions about agree a revised performance and wellbeing framework, including digital appraisal. And I'm looking at the progress action. I just wanted to kind of clarify a note. The very bottom bullet point in this year's completions is that we've seen a kind of increase from 36% to 43%, and people, I take it, that are actually having an annual PDR appraisal. But I just wanted to get where we were. Has that now been rolled out right across the council? And hopefully, although we've seen a 36 to 43, well, a 43% increase from 36%, the KPIs across, you know, when it comes to the exception reporting, the target is set high, and rightly so, because I believe everyone should get an appraisal. So it's usually around 90%, but still there's very few departments get anywhere near that target. So I just wanted some assurances, because I think if it is embedded and it has been rolled out right across the council, I'm sure, you know, in the future reporting of that, we should see a dramatic increase in numbers that have actually had an appraisal.
James.
Thank you, through yourself, Chair. Yeah, thanks, Councillor Marshall. So, yeah, so the digital appraisal check-ins, that is the term we use there, has been rolled out across the organisation. So I did some quick check-in just before I come on. So the system itself, what we're looking at there is there's 2,500 are scheduled to take place over the next few months, so that's quite a significant number, but 2,500 are scheduled to take place so they're scheduled on the system to do that. So that's, you know, positive and promising as we move forward. There's also on there an element, so you've got completed, obviously, that's given us the data that we have there, but there's another one that's in progress. And that's something we're just going to look at ourselves, because there's about 1,800 are saying they're in progress. So there's a wee bit of maybe just upskilling still required there with regards to just making sure they're fully moved on to completed within the system. So you know, I'll take that back as an action to just kind of look at that. We'll work with services again and just make sure that they're fully aware of what they need to do to you know, move forward the check-in process to the final stages. But the numbers are looking promising with regards to the number of people that are interacting with the system, which is good. Hope that answers your question, Councillor Marshall.
Has that been helpful?
Yeah, just quickly, but can you kind of maybe confirm a date, like a month, when it was actually finally all rolled out to everyone?
James.
So it went live, I'm trying to think, it was about May time last year, if I remember rightly. The system went live as a whole within iTrent. What we are doing though, we've done significant engagement with services. You know, even last week a colleague met with a group of head teachers after their school day. So there's been a massive amount of engagement being done with regards to this. We have brought groups together because we want this to reach absolutely everybody within the organisation. You know, I hear this term hard to reach, and I'm going to say it, the moon's hard to reach. You know, no one should be hard to reach within Dumfries and Galloway. So we want to absolutely work with services to roll this out. It's connected to the work we're doing with our colleagues in ICT and digital with regards to the Active Directory. So all staff members now have a password and username, but what we need to do is upskill to change that password, to get people onto the systems, to then allow them to physically use iTrent, MyLearning's the other one they need to use. So we're in a good place. We're just continually moving at pace, but continually moving. It's that continuous improvement. We want everybody to be using these systems, and that's the aim that we're thriving for.
Thank you, James. Don't see anyone else coming in, so we'll go to recommendations. And members were asked to review 1 and 2. Happy to do so. Thank you. Nods in the room. Now we move on to agenda item 13. Responding to abuse of council colleagues, brackets, zero tolerance approach. Report by Assistant Director of Governance and Human Resources. This report updates elected members on how the council responds to abuse of its staff. Following the request by this committee for a report on this matter. So we've got Vlad Valiente, Stuart Clanahan and Dave Sawyer are here to assist if any members have any questions. First of all, is there anything to add to your report, gentlemen?
Nothing from myself.
Okay.
Nothing from me.
Thank you. So I'll open it up to questions. Councillor Hislop.
Chair, it's with regard to the sort of online stuff. How do you actually stop that? Because if it's on our page, then yes, we can see the comments, we can take them down. If you don't see them, because it's on somebody else's page that you're not linked to, it could be through 3,000 folk in Dumfries and Galloway and you've never seen it. And it builds, and then the next time it comes out, it's slightly worse and slightly worse. How do we actually stop things like that happening? Because everybody will have an opinion, and as I've always said, in the olden days, if you wanted to bully somebody and call them names, you had to risk the fact that you might get a bop in the nose. Now you can do it behind a screen where nobody can see you and you're anonymous 374 or whatever it is. I don't have an anonymous 374, that was just a random number I picked, just in case something comes up.
So how do we stop it? Vlad?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Hislop. I think you've hit the nail on the head in terms of how difficult it is for us to manage this as an organisation overall. However, I think the important kind of focus and objective here is for us to do as much as we can for our staff overall, and this affects all levels within the organisation. And the kind of social media guidance that we've now got in place, which is to support officers who are subject to that kind of social media abuse, in essence details a number of actions that we can take as an employer, as a good employer at that, and some of those actions may include some of the things that we're already doing, so such as reporting it to the relevant social media platform where we deem the comments to be either abusive or harassment or defamatory in some way. Also, where possible and where we can identify the person who has put the post, then there might be other actions that we could take, particularly in terms of legal processes. But we do have a kind of a limited amount of actions that we can take overall. And you're correct in terms of the difficulties around that. The other difficulty that we are certainly finding is that when we do report to the relevant platforms, those platforms aren't always quick to respond, and sometimes they don't respond at all to the relevant reporting of that abuse. So that makes it extra difficult as well. And the other side of this is obviously there's an employee at the heart of it in terms of that receiving end, and it's making sure that both from a management and HR and OD side of things that we are supporting that employee as best we can through that process, and that involves various kind of spheres, everything from the kind of supportive management around it, but also in regards to legal, for example, getting involved in some of these things and working side by side with the relevant employee, which we've triggered in the kind of higher risk cases that we've had.
Thank you. That's been helpful. Yep. Councillor Dorward.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for the report. Just to say, I'd be fully supportive of the zero tolerance approach. We'd abhor the online abuse of staff, especially when named. It's not on, it shouldn't be happening, and we should call it out if we see it. For us as elected members, an occupational hazard is what is, we use social media as a tool regularly, even if we don't want to. It's something we need to do. But council staff have no right of reply. We do. So we're just putting that out there as a group. We don't think this is the right thing to do. Would it therefore be possible, though, I don't think some people understand how councils operate. Why would they? I didn't until I came into one. So would it be possible to do something about that and saying, like, the decision makers in the council are the councillors, elected members, and staff are carrying out these decisions as decided by members. So if you're going to do anything and vent your whatever concerns, shall we say, elected members are the ones that make the decisions, not staff. So is there something we can do about that? We as a collective can do about that, to say, here's how councils work, here's how local authorities work, here's who takes the decisions. If that already hasn't been done, because I think some people don't understand how the processes work, and that might help to reduce that. It might increase it for us, but that's an occupational hazard. That's something that we do, but I think that's fair and reasonable so that folk actually understand. And I think, you know, we all need to be careful as well how we use social media, because if we share these messages, then we could be seen as tacitly approving that. So I think it's just a warning to colleagues, elected members, to be very, social media's got loads of pitfalls and loads of challenges, and we need to be very careful how we use it. Thank you.
Thank you. So direct everything to the elected members. Dave?
Yeah, just to come back, I think we mentioned in the communications part of the report what we're planning to be doing next, which is continuing with the Respect Our Colleagues campaign. So that's an excellent example of something we could build into that campaign in the new year. So thanks very much for that.
Thank you. And I must say that, you know, they should respect us as well. You know, we shouldn't tolerate abuse, including our staff. So, yeah. Anyone else? I've got Councillor Slater.
Yes, Chair. I must admit that social media can be a great tool. I must admit it gets things out, but unfortunately some people do mention people's names, which I don't think is a good idea. But there again, if you take it one step further, you get our local papers who put letters in who are written by people who are fictional people as such, criticising people as well. I've had that as well by certain names. Eventually we'll find who they are and necessarily speak to them, because sometimes they write a lot of rubbish, untruths and things like that. But so it is difficult, social media. And I think the other thing that's coming up soon is AI. AI is going to have a major, what do you call it? What do you call it? And people, anybody, AI can be very, very good, but it can also be the dark side of it as well. I mean, AI can write you letters now and everything, just in a second. You could spend hours trying to write something, just a few lines, and it'll produce a letter. So I believe in the future, AI will make a lot of people redundant, unfortunately. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks for your comments. Don't think there's a need to respond. No. Anyone else? No. Don't see anyone wishing to come in, so thank you very much, gentlemen. So we'll move to the recommendations, and members were asked to note 1, 2 and 3 and agree 4, which is officers continue to explore additional preventative and supportive actions to ensure the safety and well-being of all colleagues, and agree to support the ongoing campaigns and implementation of our zero-tolerance approach and related policies, procedures and guidance as set out in this report. Happy to do so. Thank you. Now move on to agenda item 14. This is the digital progress report by Head of Customer and Digital. This report provides elected members with the latest progress in the digital strategy implementation plan and the key steps to support the achievement of the digital strategy objectives, to support change and the efficiency in the Council's effective use of digital technology. So we've got James Pocock and Dave Sawyer are here to assist members. So have you anything to add to the report?
No, nothing to add, Chair.
Thank you. So I'll just move it to members' questions. Councillor Lowe, I see your hand just popped up.
Yeah, thank you. I guess this question could have come across any of these IT ones. So page 202, in particular the last box, we will develop a digitally confident workforce who fully understand the service challenges. And if we go to page 205 and section 4.6 about digital enabling, how are our new staff trained when they start to work with the council? And that could be anybody who works on the bin lorry, where they actually monitor and record the routes that they can't get along, or anybody that's office based. So, and that can include digital check-ins, excuse the dog, etc. But I'm also going to include that how elected members are also trained, because after 3.5 years, I'm still learning so much. And maybe that's something we also need to address as an issue looking to 2027, that people come in and they're competent to work the technology, so that everybody across the board can do their job.
Thank you. James?
Yeah, so absolutely, and I think it's an area where we need to do some more work, particularly around about in that kind of recruitment piece, in terms of what do modern IT skills kind of look like, through to when we do bring people into the organisation, how do we train them, how do we show them how to undertake their roles enabled and supported by technology. We don't necessarily train them in the technology, we train them in how to report the missed bin, or how to update the case note within the relevant system. So absolutely, I think we've got some more work to do in that space, and as part of the work that we're doing through the new digital strategy, looking to align that with some of the work around the people strategy as well. We'll look to strengthen that activity and look to enhance some of our online training as well across the range of technologies that we have in the council, to showcase how they can help colleagues undertake their jobs. And I think that will apply equally to elected members as well. If there's specific instances as well, I'm happy to take that separately offline.
Has that been helpful, Councillor Lowe?
Yes, it has, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hislop.
How much resilience is built into this, as in we're enabling all our staff to be digitally there or thereabouts as good workers, but what happens if the cyber guys get in and all hell breaks loose and we have to go back to paper?
James?
So that's a piece of ongoing work with services to help understand the consequences if you lose access to technology. What are the business continuity arrangements? What is the impact of that? One of the pieces of work that we've been doing technically is about trying to segregate our systems, so that if we were to be a victim of a cyber attack, we would try and ensure that we don't lose everything, and we might lose a little piece and try and minimise the consequence of that. So that's a piece of work that we're kind of doing technically, but it's through the business continuity plans that we try and look at the consequences, impact and mitigations of any disruption to IT services.
Ivor?
And just to say, well done in getting into one of the 3 public sector finalists in the challenge, and we look forward to seeing how that goes.
Yep. Echo that. Anyone else? Councillor Slater.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just as Councillor Hislop said there, cyber attacks are virtually impossible to stop. It'll always be that way, because the people who do it, they use intelligence to get into your system. You're trying to fight. It's a continual fight to try and stop that getting into your system. But I think it will always run into the future. I think there will always be a risk, but you have to take that risk. And sometimes you can get a cyber attack. It depends what they're looking for, really. I mean, some companies cost them millions of pounds. I said BMW recently as well. It cost them an absolute fortune. So, but you can only do what you can do. And as technology moves, AI is going to be a major thing, as I said just previously, into the future here, and that'll have a tremendous effect on how we live and work into the future. Thank you.
Yep, thank you for your comments. Don't see anyone else wishing to come in. Okay, we'll just move to recommendations, so members happy to note. Yep, okay, thank you. We'll just move on to agenda item 15, which is the ICT Business Systems Asset Class Capital Programme 2025-26 Monitoring Report Quarter 2. Members are presented with the net spend position at the end of September 2025 for the ICT Business System Asset Class Capital Programme projects. This includes a request for acceleration of funding from next year to bring forward planned replacement mobile phones. So again, we've got James Pocock here to assist members. So anything to add to the report, James? No. So just move to questions, comments. Councillor Hislop.
Chair, I think it's an opportunity to move this iPhone replacements forward, and I think we're at the stage that we're getting a reasonable deal for doing it, so I think we should be approving that.
Yep. Councillor Slater.
Yes, thank you, Chair. As regarding replacing the phones, it would be a good idea to have ones that have a larger screen. It would be beneficial to a lot of people. Thank you.
Larger screen phones, yes, I'm getting nods from James, so that will be helpful. Any other members? Don't see anyone, so we'll just go to the recommendations. So we're happy to note 1 and 2 and approve the acceleration of 56k from financial year 2026-27 as detailed in the paragraph 4.6. Happy to do so. Yeah. Thank you, members. Thank you, gentlemen. Oh, thank you, James. Now move on to 16, which is the Assessor and Electoral Registration Officer 6-month assessment from the 1st of April 2025 to the 30th of September. This is of the service plan performance. The next 4 reports provide members with performance updates on the delivery of 4 service plans, which this committee has oversight of. The first update on performance is from the Assessor and Electoral Registration Officer covering the 6-month period to 30th of September. So we've got Alex Clark is here to assist members on the first report. So Alex, anything to add?
Nothing to add, thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Alex. So I'll open it up to members on the first report. Councillor Lowe.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's kind of a more general question, so not a reference as such. What's happening in Dumfries and Galloway regarding the automatic voter registration for young people since they can vote at 16? Have we got any progress on that?
Thank you. Alex?
Thanks very much for the question, Councillor Lowe. The last time I was here for my 6-monthly update, I was specifically asked about electoral engagement. It's a very important area of the business and one that we're working extremely hard with in terms of young voters. We've got the Scottish Parliamentary election 26 really just round the corner. At this juncture, we're working hard with schools, working away with their data, and it's the whole question around the under-16s. So yeah, we're working extremely hard on it, looking to target and work away with groups such as head teachers and others to take that matter forward.
Has that been helpful, Councillor Lowe?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other members? Don't see anyone online. Nobody in the room. Okay, we'll just move to recommendations. We were asked to review and scrutinise the report. So thank you very much, Alex. Now move on to agenda item 17. This is the Customer Digital Service 6-month assessment from the 1st of April to the 30th of September 2025 of the Service Plan 25-26 Performance Report. This report is the performance update for the Customer Digital Service. We've got Mike Shepley here to assist members. Do you have anything to add to your report, Mike?
No, thank you.
Thank you. So over to members. No. Must be a good report, Mike. Thank you very much. So I'll move to recommendations then. So we're asked to review 1, scrutinise 2 and agree 3. Happy to do so. Yeah. Thank you very much, Mike. Now we move on to agenda item 18, the Finance and Procurement 6-month assessment of the 1st of April to the 30th of September 2025 of the Service Plan 25-26 performance. The next 6 months assessment report is the performance update for the finance and procurement service. Paul Garrett is here to assist if members have any questions. Anything to add, Paul?
No, nothing to add. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. So I'll open it up to members. Councillor Hislop.
Chair, it's on page 296, one to the top three. They're within target, but the long-term trend is getting worse. Is that just increase in workload, or is it sort of holding staff vacancies for and increasing work pressure?
Thank you. Paul?
Can I just check? Was it the top three you said there, Councillor Hislop?
Yes, the housing benefit,
Housing
processing,
benefit, council
etc.
tax. Yeah, no, that is a reflection of workload. I mean, I think our processing times are still within the target levels, are still lower than the national averages, so there's still good levels of performance exhibited there, but there are increasing pressures in terms of demands, particularly in relation to council tax reduction applications, but we are maintaining what I would say are still very strong processing times in those areas.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Marshall.
Yeah, it's just on page 300. It's the risk register. It's just the first one, FP01, which is the council incurs significant unanticipated expenditure and or significant financial loss. I see that the current risk is yellow, but I would have thought with some of the pressures that are under, that would have been in the red. Just maybe an explanation.
Paul?
No, I think it's very much a fair point. I think the extent of financial risk in the current financial year is greater than it has been in the past, particularly in relation to the issue that we discussed earlier on today's agenda. I mean, I think the fact where it is at the minute, Councillor Marshall, is a reflection of we're partway through the year and we've still got an opportunity to support progression in terms of reducing that risk, both through seeking to focus on those particular areas where there is projected overspending at the minute, but also looking at the opportunities the Council has within its overall financial management arrangements to address those risks. So I think it's probably a case that it could have been either red or yellow. I think the key thing to highlight is that this is a key area of focus for the Finance Procurement Service, and it's something that we're closely working on at the minute to try and reduce the extent of the potential risk and also look at opportunities to address that if that was to come to pass at the end of the financial year.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? Don't see anyone else coming in. Thanks, Paul. So I'll go to recommendations. We were asked to review 1, scrutinise 2 and agree 3. Happy? Yep. Now move on to agenda item 19. This is the Governance and Human Resources Service 6-month assessment, 1st April to 30th September 2025. The final report is the performance update for Governance and Human Resources. Vlad Valiente is here to assist members of any questions. Anything to add, Vlad?
Nothing more to add, Chair.
Thank you. So, Councillor Marshall, is that your hand up for this item?
Yeah, it is, Chair. Yeah, if you allow me. It's just, I've just noticed, just to point out something, just with regards to the risk register again. If you look at page 349, 350, and 351, there seems to be, there's no there's no white circles for the original risks or the target risks.
Yep, Vlad?
Yeah, through yourself, Chair. Absolutely, I think Councillor Marshall's picked up an error in the printing. I can only apologise for that. I hadn't noted that myself.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that either, so well done. Anyone else? Don't see anyone else. Oh, Councillor Dorwood.
Thank you, Chair. We're encouraged to use our phones. I keep using my phone and I keep admitting it. So I'm going to wave from now on, wave at you. Thank you for the report, really interesting. And no issues with the recommendations per se, but just a question on it's page 338. Find it. It's the service delivery improvement projects, and it's the research the current depopulation challenge even across Dumfries and Galloway, identify the best interventions, and due date was 30th September, and I'm conscious we have an exception report on page 354, which I went to and didn't really answer the questions that I had. So it doesn't really say when the delay in this will be addressed. There is an improvement action there, which is quite strange because it's saying the delay has been identifying the appropriate case studies, although we've got a lot of people in D&G that have apparently, they're apparently agile workers, but we can't identify anybody. So just wondering when the this report will be completed, because it is, as we all know, one of our biggest challenges and one of the most important things we need to address in this region, because we have one of the highest depopulation figures with the islands in Scotland. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Executive Director.
Thanks, Councillor Dorwood. So as at the end of September, those examples, so the website work is progressing now and to be complete. There will be a briefing to members in December about the timeline for bringing forward all the outputs from the population work that has been commissioned so far, and the intent is to bring that forward to members in March. Every area committee has also asked for a report related to their area, so the intention is to bring that through the March cycle of committees to area committee ahead of a full council and population discussion at that meeting as well. And there'll be a chance to hear from the authors of the reports in January, February, mindful of budget processes, but we're just identifying dates to brief members ahead of publication of any of the outputs from the work as well. So we've got a programme and a timeline, and we'll be sending that to members very shortly.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Don't see anyone coming in. Okay, members, just move to the recommendations, which is review 1, scrutinise 2 and agree 3. And that takes us on to agenda item 20, which is any other business deemed urgent. I have not been notified of any urgent business, so can I thank members and officers for their attendance today, and I will now bring the meeting to a close. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair.